but we have to turn our attention to Saudi Arabia and Herve Renard. The success that he is having on the international stage is fantastic, and I think the success was already pretty off and running when he rolled up with Louis Vuitton running shoes to this game today. This guy looks sharp, man. The white shirt, the pants, Louis Vuitton shoes. Take nothing away from his coaching ability, because you could see today, Lucho, that Saudi Arabia were well coached. They were well organized. We talk about the passion, the speed, determination, the athleticism. They had a lot of class about their team, including the way they finished. But you could see that this team was very well coached indeed.
Definitely. We are not going to talk. We are going to move around the tactics that we've seen, because at the end, Yesui was very organized. They knew what they have to do in every single phase of the game, where they needed to rest with the ball, or where they needed to wait and see what happened with Argentina. Where's the next move for Argentina? The changes, even Scaloni didn't make all the changes. He could have had another play coming in, but they didn't wanted to do it. So they were ready to face every single aspect. But I like to hear what they were mentioning about Renard, talking about it looks like he could be playing. I think he's 54, and he looks like a good physical aspect that he could be playing at the game. There've been talks that he's been, even when they were being coaching, 3 sessions a day. So knowing that if you can fight, if you can run, if you can, we talked a lot about this sentence of work hard beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And I think he's got that right in his head. And when these players started from the first minute running, pressing, chasing every single player of Argentina, you could see that when you got that desire, maybe you don't have that talent up front who can be decisive, like the goal that we've seen from them, but definitely the minutes were going down, and you could see that maybe they were going to go down a little bit on that aspect, but they kept that intensity that I think that it gave it that confidence. In the last 20 minutes, you could see that they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going. They believe right now, that they can get away with an amazing result. They struggled in the first few minutes when Argentina started sending balls into the box, but they were fantastic at the defense. It was just magnificent, and that's something that we have to give the credit to the coach. First of all, because of the tactical approach, and second of all, because the way this team is being worked, they look so sharp. Intensity, 90 minutes or 100 and something minutes. But at the end, that's what is going to give them. They know that they cannot be decisive in the last third, but they can go for it with a different plan, and that was fantastic for them.
I'm going to give you a number, and well said, Lucho. I'm going to give you a number with this Saudi Arabia team. The number is 12. 12 players play on the same club team, Al Hilal. Yeah. That makes a massive difference. It shows what can happen if Qatar, who have a lot of players playing locally, playing in the domestic league, if you get it right. This is a Herve Renard team that has a lot of familiarity about them, almost like a well-oiled and well-drilled club team. And you saw today the understanding, the movement, the cohesiveness. I was incredibly impressed. You know Argentina is going to break you down with their movement, keeping that high line. When you're going to keep a high line, you have to have the speed. You have to have that sense of urgency to get back and defend. At times, you saw 4 or 5 players running for each other, blocking shots. One man gets beat, the next man steps up. That next man up mentality, that can take you a long way in the group stages of this World Cup when you're playing against one of the favorites and one of the biggest teams in the history of this tournament, in this Argentina edition. In the attack, it's also incredible what happens when you play with 2 strikers. That first goal comes because you have 2 strikers who both gamble. For Argentina, I thought Christian Romero, you see the rust. He hasn't played in a while, and you saw the rust on that play. All it takes is one moment of calamity for a lot of these big-name teams who have been playing games week in and week out, and you saw it there. And Al-Shari to gamble, to take a touch, he wrong foots Christian Romero with his first touch. It's aggressive, it's towards goal, and it creates the perfect angle for him to hit it across his body. And he gets a bit of deflection, gets a little bit of luck, but take nothing away from the decision-making and the execution in the final third. For Argentina, what they lacked in that second goal, Saudi Arabia had the sense of urgency to get down and double down. Angel Di Maria jumping out of the way, joke of a defending. I don't like to say that about players, but that's what that moment was, an absolute joke to not get back and double down on the attacker. And that's what happens. In the World Cup, every team has just enough quality. If you give them time and space, they will punish you. And I think this Saudi Arabia team, they did things that some of the other teams who were the underdogs didn't do as well. If you press the best teams in the world, you can make any player at this level, if you give them time and space, they can break you down. England, you give them time and space, they'll break you down. Wales, you give them time and space, they'll break you down. What they did well was they started putting pressure on the center backs of Argentina. They started putting pressure on the likes of Paredes. He got subbed out for that reason. And I just think the mentality shift from the likes of a Saudi Arabia gives a blueprint for some of these lesser known teams.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I don't want to take anything away from the fact that they were absolutely well organized. Maybe Argentina were not at their best, but I want to get back to Herve Renard, JJ. Obviously, following his career, he's been very successful on the African continent already. We recognize that, obviously, as a Frenchman. I want to know what the French media are talking about him. Obviously, he's been very successful before where he has coached, but what do they think of him as a person? And this is a question to you, and I'll ask this to the other guys as well. What does a result like this against a giant like Argentina do for Saudi soccer in particular?
I mean, there are sort of a couple of really interesting questions sort of within one topic. I think Herve Renard is somebody who he's known in France. I'm not going to say that he's an unknown, but he's kind of a bit like an outsider because he doesn't really ply his trade with club teams. When he has managed at club level in France, it hasn't necessarily gone according to plan. He had a disappointing spell with Sochaux, which ended in relegation, and he had a very, very short-lived spell with Lille as well. So he's somebody who, he's recognized in France as somebody who really excels on the international stage, but not just on the international stage, notably within the African continent and with underdog teams. Obviously, his success with Zambia really put him on the map, but obviously with Côte d'Ivoire as well. I think that made him the first foreign coach to have won the first coach to have won the Africa Cup of Nations with two different teams, something like that. So, he's got a number of these really impressive accolades, yet at the same time, he's got this kind of reputation of as a journeyman, this kind of quirky reputation as well, obviously as one of the better looking managers in world football. And I think he's now been working this challenge with the Saudi Arabian national team for the last sort of 3 years or so. I think he was appointed in 2019. And there's been sort of a sense of what might come next in Renard's career. So then suddenly to get like a landmark performance and result here, that not only puts Saudi football on the map because, this is, a first World Cup in an Arab nation. And then suddenly for one of them to really excel and pull off one of the results, one of the notable results in World Cup history, that's huge. That's huge not only for Saudi Arabian football, but also just, for the Arab game in general. It kind of, it lessens sort of, we were all quite disappointed with Qatar showing as host nation on the opening day. It kind of lessens the shock of that now that we've seen a team like Saudi Arabia really take it to one of the best in Argentina, because I think many people were very worried what the showing was going to be like from a number of the teams sort of closer to Qatar geographically after we saw Iran absolutely ripped to shreds by England. So for Renard to oversee this with Saudi Arabia, I think this is huge, not only for them, obviously with a league that can attract some very talented foreign players, but also in terms of their international stature as well. And, for international teams who are going to be looking at a coach to maybe oversee their next, cycle of talent, particularly French speaking, Renard is going to be back on top of some of those lists, because we've seen him go to places like Morocco in the past, and it hasn't quite worked out. So who knows, maybe this will earn Renard a shot at maybe a more, what we could consider a more prestigious post.
You see a lot of Arab countries who hire foreign coaches and it goes south. It gets to the World Cup and then it goes completely south. What I like that Renard did with the Saudi Arabia team, 2018, there was a core group and really a group that was aging. He got rid of them and brought in younger players who were promising stars and really unheard of names at the time. When you do that, when you get a core group of young players now that are your players, you come in as a new coach, they will fight for you. You have 4 years to instill your philosophy of hard work, discipline, and hitting on the counter. I thought Saudi Arabia showing that they could not only show their athleticism, their tactical acumen, but also they looked dangerous on set pieces. They were quality in defending set pieces. They showed almost like an amoeba-like ability to do what the game needed at the time, and really impressed me in that department. If you were going to be an Arab team, I think today was a day that was a massive victory for the Arab region for soccer, garnering more respect to their names. I look at the result for Tunisia. I put them in that region as well. Yep. Really, really garnering massive respect in ways we have not seen in previous World Cups. When you look at some of the betting odds, when you look at some of the predictions, I was falling in that. I thought this game was going to be 4-0 Argentina. And could you blame it with how Argentina's been scoring?
Nobody's
goals?
Betting on Saudi Arabia to get anything from Argentina. Don't be silly,
exactly. Mate. No, but now it makes you think going into future games from a betting standpoint. And really, if you're a team facing the likes of a Saudi Arabia, facing the likes of a Tunisia, facing some of these Arab countries, it makes you think,
be cautious.
Wow, we have to actually show up. It's not going to be an easy match anymore.